Welcome to the virtual tour of the exhibition Restart, Transformation in Modern Housing Estates. The exhibition was part of the architecture platform LINA program in 2024, and it was produced in collaboration with Architect Tool, a platform based in Berlin. Today, the so-called mass housing from the modernist period has become part of the history that is considered generally to have failed. New social problems emerged, the different cultural backgrounds of the inhabitants replaced communal identity with anonymity, and the quality of housing soon failed to meet the needs of the new age. What is to be done when the best before date arrives for entire housing estate at once? If the belief that universal solutions work and that housing is a public good, that the authorities have a duty to provide for everyone, if this has disappeared. In a market economy, it is only the interest of capital that counts. In the former Eastern Europe bloc countries, the total reversal from the state ownership to private capital has been particularly dramatic over the last 30 years, but the same problems actually are across Europe. Housing and human-centered urban space are currently as much a key issue as they were after the Second World War. The exhibition takes a fresh look at the utopias of the past and analyzes how housing estates from across Europe can be transformed today, where the idea of collectivity has been dispersed into multitudes of privatopias. LINA, the pan-European platform, has brought together a series of young architects, all born after the demise of the great project of modernism, at a time when the social agenda of architecture was being replaced by a private one. All of them have different backgrounds and experiences with modernist housing, but they are united by the idea that they are not static monuments from the past that should be declared a failure, but living in environments that should be developed wisely, understanding their values, and above all, figuring out what kind of living environment today's highly diverse community needs. How can we program change in these environments? How can we transform them from anonymous to personal? Above all, this exhibition brings together the personal reflections of the authors' chosen neighborhoods that are meaningful to them or embody the potential for change. Each of the cases described here is a valuable experience that certainly does not provide a universal recipe for the renovation of all post-war neighborhoods in Europe. On the contrary, the examples show the diversity of the problems and the uniqueness of the strategies, but they are all united by the belief that in the utopias of the past, there is a valuable lesson hidden for today. Raina Avramova is an architect who graduated from the Faculty of Architecture in Skopje and the Vienna University of Technology. She is based in Vienna, where she has been involved in planning the renovation of social housing complexes in the city of Vienna. Additionally, she teaches at the Department for Housing and Design at Technical University Vienna. In the exhibition, she addressed the housing policy in Vienna ability to adapt to the latest social, political, and economic tendencies and to respond to all the stakeholders involved, from state to non-state institutions. It is important to understand it as a network of countering strategies between the welfare state policies of affordability and control and the neoliberal tendencies of privatization. Superposition is an experimental architecture studio founded by Don Holohan and Elspeth Lee, which integrates teaching, research, and practice. Working between Hong Kong and Ireland, the studio merges vernacular means and methods with digital tools with a view toward making architecture which is specific rather than generic, pragmatic but not utilitarian, and with a strongly community-centered view of evolving traditional place. In their contribution to the exhibition, they discussed the Dominic Street housing in Dublin, Ireland. The street history and project future encapsulates the city's changing attitudes towards construction, maintenance, and urban renewal, reflecting broader shifts in economic conditions and societal values. The RIV operates between architecture, public space and spatial strategies, a collaboration founded by Hedwig van der Linden and Kevin Westerveld with the motivation to provide air with complex transition challenges. The RIV seeks synergy between conceptual thinking and co-creative practice by creating space for dialogue and local coalitions, consciously starting from the qualities and resources of existing habitats. The contribution focused on the village of Nagele, where they were given the opportunity to work through the research by design on the ambitions for the future of the village and for its demanded housing extension. Together with the community, local actors, they envision Nagele as a village of the future by developing Das neue Bauen of the 21st century, based on designing with bio-based building materials, with the principles of the sharing economy and of collectivity. Spolka was founded in 2016 in Košice, Slovakia, as an informal collective of young women united by their interest in their hometown. Building on the values of care and sustainability, Spolka has been engaged in urban topics ever since. Currently, it brings together 6 female members from the fields of architecture, sociology, and urban planning. In the exhibition, they explored the transition from collective to individual narratives in urban planning, with a focus on the context of socialist Czechoslovakia and its legacy in contemporary Košice. Drawing from historical resources and engaging with residents of prefabricated housing estates, it integrates the research of diverse perspectives to understand the evolution of communal spaces and collective caretaking practices. E+T are Ena Kukic and Tinko Jelečević, whose work in architecture explores existing spatial fragments of collective memory and creates new ones. They consider projects holistically with the existing context, the historical backdrop and the needs of the local community, focusing mainly on the revitalization and adaptation of typologies for collective use. They look at closely at Alipašnje Polje housing block in Sarajevo, one of the most monumental residential complexes from the late 1960s. The allure of residing the housing block to this day becomes clear. Despite the destruction of neglect, the housing block suffered in the post-Yugoslav era. The perspective of young architects is complemented by the work of the Estonian Academy of Arts Architecture Department Slender Block Studio, which offers solutions for modernizing the Hrushchevka, the most common type of mass housing in Soviet Estonia. The Slender Block Studio project, completed in the spring of 2024 at the Estonian Academy of Arts, had an ambitious goal to pilot volumetric renovation and illustrate the spatial potential inherent in the factory-made renovation process. The aim was to offer a comprehensive solution, including expansion of living space, rethinking the open spaces between buildings, developing apartment-based solutions, improving accessibility, and creating potential community spaces. An important point was to embrace a modular approach and develop a catalogue of renovation solutions. The studio's name derived from the widely used Tallinn building design known as the Lender House, named after Voldemar Lender, an engineer and builder who began mass construction of affordable 2-story wooden houses in the suburbs of Tallinn in the beginning of the 20th century.